this was the first kind of time they've gone wheel to wheel. And he definitely took that, as Chris mentioned, as a lesson into today and played Max Verstappen at his own game. And oh boy, I tell you what, if you dish it out, you better be able to take it. And today we found out a driver who definitely cannot take having his own games thrown straight back at him.
Yeah, so I will say that Lando kind of goads Verstappen a little bit in that sense with some of his attempts in the Grand Prix itself, fighting for the lead there, because he's doing the big lunges, he's pushing the track limits as well, because he would have had to have made the move and then pull 5 seconds on Max, because he did end up with a 5-second time penalty for the track limits there after doing an attempt and then running off the road. You can argue that he's gone off the road there because Max is reacting to Lando in the braking zones and moving across in the braking zones there.
We need jingle. We need the jingles banners.
What, whose fault is it? Yeah, we're getting there.
Yes.
We're getting there. I didn't mind the track limits, by the way. I love how we'll have a longer chat about the track limits when we talk about Piastri. But I like the fact that during the race, there's actual jeopardy for going off. But I don't feel like it's designed for when you have contact and go off. I feel like track limits specifically is designed for when you're being a bit cheeky, trying to get a bit of extra purchase on the exit and entry. I don't think it's like you got yeeted off in an incident which is later declared by the stewards to be not your fault, i.e. the contact was caused by somebody else, which resulted in you going off, and then you get a track limits violation for that. I was like, ugh.
No, the penalty, it was one before because he had a lunge and he ran off himself.
That was the one. Oh, right. Yeah, I still think it's not designed for going off under racing.
The problem is that it's reported by the marshals, right? And race control can't pick through every single one of those things and determine why somebody went off, I think. But what I don't get is where has he picked up these 3 previous track limits violations if track limits is so hard to do now? I mean, they must have all happened between turns 6 and 7 or something, I guess. It seems to be the only place, as Oscar Piastri found out, where you can do track limits now.
I find it obscure that we are not presented with any evidence of this when it's such a conclusive thing that is going to change everything. We need the evidence. Otherwise, you have to rethink these penalties because, I mean, it's just word against word, isn't it, at this point?
Yeah, and our words will be set against each other.
Exactly.
As we play a little game of Whose Fault Is It?
Whose fault is it?
Okay, there's a lot of different elements here because there was various battles in this particular war that we had between Verstappen and Lando Norris. So you had a couple of instances of basically Lando Norris with the DRS chasing down and going for a move up the inside. One, I think, was into turn 3 and one was into turn 4, where Verstappen appeared to have moved in the braking zone. And then Lando Norris is very vocal, trying to basically play the referee while racing. And I wonder how much that happens all the time, Chris, when there's, someone hunting down and we don't always hear the radio messages. But there, it sort of sounded like Norris was on in an iRacing lobby complaining in the group chat.
I tell you, it happens every single time. But it was quite nice F1 TV playing that radio. Oh, he pushed me off. He needs to give me that place back within seconds of that message obviously happening. Normally we wait a couple of laps for it. But the moving under braking,
all right,
100%. He was moving under braking in a couple of his defenses. I think don't agree. Undeniable.
I don't agree. I don't agree he was moving under braking. But
he literally moves in the braking zone and he reacts to the big thing. The difference between defending and blocking, and you can't do blocking, is when you react to the car behind you. I actually, a couple of months ago, I was working on a video with professional racing drivers about this for a client, and they all said the same thing. It's when you react to the car behind you, and you can see Norris positions his car behind, and then Max reacts accordingly in the braking zone.
Totally agree. Can't disagree with it. It is Max of old. It's Max of old. Yeah. We've been told this guy has matured, how much mature he is. He's able to race wheel to wheel now. Look at him, look how he's grown up. He went wheel to wheel with Charles Leclerc. He has not grown up, clearly, in the last 2.5 years since he last had a wheel to wheel battle. Andrea Stella, man of the moment, afterwards, said it perfectly while being interviewed by Ted Kravitz. And he said, they've learned nothing from Max has learned nothing from 2021, and this is down solely to the FIA for not punishing him harsh enough for what happened back with his fights with Lewis. And now he's been so dominant for the last 2.5 years, but he hasn't had to fight anyone. So of course he's matured. He has seemed like he's matured off circuit. Now, don't get me wrong, his comments after the race were a little bit more measured than it normally would be, and he has grown off circuit. But clearly, when it comes to wheel, the man would rather crash than lose. Now, I get it. They all want to win. But Lando put it perfectly. I've lost a lot of respect for him because how can you trust a driver who you consider to be a friend as well to move in the braking zone in the fastest series of motorsport in the world? There's a reason why this rule exists, for safety, because they move so quickly under braking and the closing speeds are so quick. You cannot be reactionary. And that's exactly what Max was doing today. And I think that's also why why some of those dives and those sends, a couple of them were a little bit out of control because he left more room than he would do because he was so scared of where Max was going to end up.
And I think the difference between, the Max we saw today, the Max we saw in 21, and the Max we've seen in between is that he's had that innate confidence that it doesn't really matter what he does. He's going to get through and still win the race. At no point or on very few occasions has it actually looked like a win might be in jeopardy if he doesn't make this move immediately, right?